Hi everyone, welcome back. I have not been on YouTube for a while. As you can probably see from the title of this video, it is because my dear Abba has passed away. And it's a very strange thing to even say out loud. I'll start from the beginning. My dad has always been an extremely healthy person. I don't remember him ever being sick with anything, like not a cold, not a fever, not a stomach virus, like nothing. Even in his youth, he was a karate teacher together with his father and my aunt. My grandfather owned karate schools. And so my dad was always in really great health. Later on in his life, he was a modern classical dancer, and he traveled in the States and also sometimes in the world and traveled with his dancing company. When my dad was diagnosed with anything, it wasn't really clear in the beginning what it was. And so basically what happened is that he felt like his maybe bowel movements weren't normal, and so they went and checked to see if something was wrong, and they found something small in his colon. It didn't seem to be something really big, and so he underwent surgery, and when they basically opened him up, they discovered that it was much worse than what they thought. It was very complicated. His intestines basically stuck together in weird different places and were attached to his bladder, and it wasn't a good situation. So that was a really big deal, and that was 3.5 years ago. So he went through that surgery. He was cancer free for a while. After that, they said, okay, like the next best thing to do is chemo. He went through one round of chemo. They didn't know is that he was allergic to something in the chemo. And so basically one dose of chemo acted like 20 doses, and all of his organs started shutting down. And so that was also a very long road to recovery, with my dad almost losing his life, and it was very traumatic for the whole family. After that, he was recovering, he was doing better, then he had cancer again. He underwent another surgery. It was successful for a while, and then while I was in the States in Texas, he got diagnosed again. And since coming home, you guys have seen just a bit of the journey of taking care of my dad. The care that I gave my dad is very minimal compared to my mom taking care of him for 3.5 years in incredible pain. And honestly, it's like my mom is just Wonder Woman. This woman is so strong and so caring, and just she's amazing. The care for my dad was getting too much for it to be possible for me and my mom to take care of him well. He became bedridden. His bones in his back were weak, and there was like sort of like a breakage in his spine. They got a morphine drip that's attached to you. You can only pump the morphine into your body a specific amount of times so that you do not overdose. What we didn't know is that with the pain medications that he was taking earlier, in addition to the morphine drip, it did him over, and he basically accidentally overdosed. I woke up in the morning, and my mom she went up to my dad's room and was checking him, and he wasn't responsive at all. She was doing everything. She called me. I was also trying to check if he would respond to anything, and he wasn't. So I told my Ima, this is not normal. Call an ambulance. So she called an ambulance. The paramedics come, and they immediately say in Hebrew, this person is destined for a resuscitation. Should we resuscitate him? And my mom immediately sort of freaked out, because her and my dad said earlier that if something happens, don't resuscitate him. I think he was suffering so much that it was like, if this is the end, let it be the end. Now, I didn't know this, and for me, it was like, he can't go like this. You know, like I couldn't imagine my siblings not being able to say goodbye. I think that for me was like the hardest thought. Like, I can't sit here and let this happen, that my siblings won't have a chance. Like, it'll just be like he's gone, and they'll never have that full circle with him. It was weird because my mom was saying, but I told him that I wouldn't do this, and I felt like I had my dad's life like literally in my hands, being like, if God chooses to take him, he has an X amount of time on one hand, and he'll probably suffer during that time. And yet, if he goes without my siblings being able to say goodbye, that's X amount of years of all my siblings' remaining years in life combined, that they will never have full circle. Like they'll never be able to be at peace with the fact that they didn't say goodbye. And so I was really, really adamant. I'm like, no, Ima, he still has more time. And I told them resuscitate him. And I took my mom and I said, it's not good for us to see this. We went to a different room and we prayed. What eventually ended up happening is that they took him to the hospital. I was with him in the ambulance. We were in intensive care and it was like the world was collapsing. That's how it felt. Eventually they stabilized him. And so we decided to put him in hospice. That was the right thing to do. My mom did talk to him and he told her that she did the right thing by putting him there and by resuscitating him. And I think that gave me also a lot of peace. And I also needed to hear it because in my mind, I'm like, shoot, did I just prolong my dad's pain because of some selfish notion that we would still have more time with him? It gave my siblings eventually was something priceless, which was that we had our dad for 5 more weeks. And so in this process, it's an impossible process to go through if not for the grace of God, because it's like, am I literally preparing myself to live the remainder of my life without my dad? Is my 58-year-old mother, who's young, going to have to prepare herself to bury her husband? I was like really thinking about my younger siblings and thinking, God, like either you heal him or you take him. Like there's no in between. And you sort of have to make peace with things on the way, sort of like, okay, God, I'm praying and I have to be at rest that I know your will is to heal people, but that healing might not happen the way that I want it to be. And you guys should know that my dad, till the end, literally till the end, was believing for his healing and still wanting to go and travel and make God's name great on the earth. And that's something that I will never forget. Eventually what happened is that he started to eat less and less and was in more and more pain, so they increased his medication every single time. We would take turns being with him at night and sleeping there from the evening until morning, and then someone else would take the evening, night, morning shift, and we would just sleep on a mattress on the floor. Eventually what happened is that he went into a coma and he didn't come out of it. We didn't know how long that would take because sometimes it can take days. And so we put in place a plan that we would go through shifts again. And so my oldest brother, Shalem, was there with him, and he passed during the time that he was there. And it was just extremely traumatic. And I didn't expect myself to respond the way that I did. I dropped off my sister and my aunt, and they went up in front of me. I parked the car, I got there, and by the time I got there, he wasn't there anymore. And I remember just like losing my breath, and I just screamed like bloody murder, just like someone had ripped my heart out. And I don't think God intended us for death. I think that his plan was for life in the Garden of Eden, and I don't think that death will ever be something that we can comprehend because we weren't meant for separation. It's not natural for us. And so even though it's become natural as a person living on this earth that people, they go, it's not natural in our spirit. And I was completely inconsolable. Like you could not comfort me. I cried and I cried and I cried. And I just allowed myself to, because I think when he went into a coma, I knew that, that was it. And I didn't want to say anything to my family. And my dad, he also believed in resurrection. And I know for a lot of viewers or for a lot of people that would be a strange thing. But us, for believers in Yeshua and Jesus, he was resurrected. And he resurrected Lazarus. And we believe that that is possible. And people are resurrected from the dead. It's not something that you see often nowadays, or it's not well documented. I think that I knew that even though my dad made us promise him that if that was ever to happen, then we would pray for his resurrection. In my heart, I felt that that wasn't going to happen. Like God had decided that this was the time he was going to take him home. In Israel, what you do is you have a funeral fairly quickly after the person passed. And by Monday, we were burying him. And it's a very, very surreal thing to bury your parent. The funeral was a very, very strange and yet beautiful day, and it put me in awe of God. And in Israel, what you do is you wrap the person, and then you put the person in the middle of this room, and people mourn for him out loud. People say things about the person that they lost. And so we did that as a family. And as we were praying for resurrection, someone was playing one of the songs that my dad would dance to. And I don't know what came over me. It must have been literally just the Spirit of God just came over me. I didn't even think about it. I just got up and I danced. And I just reminded myself of my dad dancing, because my dad would do that. He would just, in the middle of worship, he would get up and just dance. And the whole room would just be elevated, like people's hearts would go up to the heavens, and the heavens would come down to earth. And it was just a beautiful thing. And I'm really happy that I could honor my dad in that way. Of the legacy of honoring God was in his funeral. So what you do after the funeral is that you sit Shiva. What does it mean to sit Shiva? Shiva means 7. So you sit 7 days and mourn for the person who passed. So immediately right after the funeral, you go to the person's house and you sit there for 7 days. We open the house and people bring, flowers, and they bring food. They'll cook food for you, and they'll bring snacks and desserts and just things for the table, because many people come and you don't have what to serve. In a Shiva, at least for me, I don't feel like I'm properly mourned, because you're just with people all day and you're always talking about the memory of the person. And so moving forward, I don't know how life is going to look like. I'm starting to have to get used to a world without my dad. My dad is such an amazing person. And I say is an amazing person because yes, his physical body is not here anymore, and he's not in this earth anymore. But my dad is more alive than you and I are. My dad is in heaven with God, the most alive he's ever been. And I know that this world and this earth is just a little tiny blimp of something eternal. And that reality is very much set in my heart. And so, when the Bible says that we don't grieve and mourn as unbelievers do, it's true. I have a peace in my heart that I know that I'm going to be with my dad forever. He's always going to be my dad. He's always going to be my Abba. And so I'm realistic about the fact that it's not going to be easy. But by God, what joy we're going to have when we're all of us together in eternity. It's going to be amazing. Moving forward, I don't know what type of content you'll see on this channel. I'll be moving into the city in about a month, and life will look very different. You'll see me talking about grief and about my dad and about how we're dealing with it, and I hope that that's okay with you. I wanted to say thank you guys for everyone who has been a friend to my family, to my parents, to my Abba, anyone who has prayed for him, anyone who has prayed for us. And if you have it in your heart to continue to pray for me and my family, I would love that. I would appreciate that so much. I love you guys. Feel free to subscribe to this channel. If you're new here, if you're not new, then welcome back. Feel free to follow me on Instagram, and I'll see you guys very soon.
Hello everybody, welcome to the Dead Sea. As you know, you're in the lowest place on the face of the earth, and the Dead Sea has great prophecies that will be fulfilled when Yeshua comes back, that the waters will come out of the temple and make all this salt water fresh, and there'll be fish in it, and they'll be fishing on the sea, and it'll turn from something dead into something alive. So we look forward to those great days.